Does she dream? Yesterday had been such sadness. When I came home, my cockatoo had lost 6 feathers. 2 of them were badly chewed. I do everything I can to help. I study clinical manuals, I read the latest research, consult my avian veterinarians, and use everything I can do to fight the problem. Still, sometimes I just feel hopeless. Habituation, some people call it. The page-long flowchart in one veterinary manual shows just how difficult feather-destructive behavior is to correct. I went to bed with that thought heavy on my mind. I had set the alarm for 8 a.m. An early riser I am not. Somehow, a faint trickle of light from above woke me. I felt strange. There was stillness in the air, and it seemed that I could feel the warmth of the approaching dawn. This would be difficult to do from my bedroom because I never leave the window open. As the light slowly grew, I made out the faint shapes of leaves surrounding me. They appeared enormous. I became captivated by a growing certainty that I was now deep in the bowels of a forest, far from my bed and the life I knew so well. Could I be dreaming? Even though there was not a breath of wind, the pungent smells of wet earth, moss, and the unmistakable scent of recent rain rose to greet me. My dreams were never this clear. I wanted to turn and look around, but my body would not heed my call. I could have sworn that my mother taught me this. This couldn't be. My mother hated camping trips. What was I thinking? It was then that I noticed that I was standing. My feet clenched tightly around something below. Like a night watchman set at his post, I stood erect and alert against the vanishing darkness. It was wonderful. My age had slipped away from me. The pain and ache of being in my 50s was gone. I felt young again, like a teenager. It was then that I noticed that I had forgotten my name. Did I have a name? Surely I did. I couldn't remember. Words began to escape me too. Instead, I found a history of memories and feelings stretching back many years, and much like the frames of a movie in slow motion, they showed me who I was and where I belonged. All my companions knew who I was. Names meant nothing. I was home in my flock, and I was a lesser sulfur crested cockatoo. I began to wonder if I had read the legend of Merlin and King Arthur once too often. My mother and father cockatoos were not far from where I stood. They, too, were as still as stone. It was their morning call that would break me from my post, and I would wait for that sound, as I had since I was a fledgling. Then it happened. A single shout broke the moment. All at once, 100 voices rose up like trumpets to greet the new day. I heard my mother and father in that symphony. My voice rose to meet theirs. The new day had begun. The light was weak, but my eyes were amazing, because I could see into the ultraviolet. The world had a beautiful glow to it. I turned them to find my mother roosting in the ironwood tree only a moment's flight from me. Her eyes surveyed our world, searching for predators, I think. I did the same, using the skills she had perfected in me over the 4 years of my life. I looked and listened for signs of danger. It was something I would do all day. Dad broke from his roost and darted into the sky with his loud, boisterous voice. Then our flock clambered into the air with sound and fury. After circling briefly, we each chose a roost close to the others, and from these vantage points we examined the land below. We spoke to one another by subtle body movements, and only rarely punctuated these speeches with an outcry. Hunger began its daily call. We descended together to forage. In groups we performed the age-old rite of taking nourishment. My mother concerned herself with teaching my new brothers and sisters what to eat and how to survey for predators. Like a ballet dancer, her body taught clearly, in words no human could ever understand, the beauty and danger of the forest. It is this dance of life that passes our culture from one generation to another. It is her dance of life that leads me to the food that I eat, the safe perches on which I stand, and the roosts I keep at night. Even now, her gaze falls on me. Soon I will be 5 years old and ready to take on a life partner, but our bond will never break. We took to the sky many times that day. Whenever danger threatened, we moved in a flurry of white wings with great pomp and circumstance. In moments of danger, a vague memory of my human hands arose in my mind, but I pushed it away. What could compare with wings? What could compare to soaring free in the sky with your family? While we were foraging, I took time to examine my body with my new eyes. Strangely, memories of my studies as a human returned. Unlike humans, I found that I could see clearly no matter what direction my eyes were facing, and I did not need to focus on any single thing. I found myself stretching out my right wing and foot, and then the other wing and foot. I began to preen and observe. My flight and tail contour feathers received attention first, and then I worked on the semi-plumes and the down feathers. That helped to keep me safe from the weather. I had turned my attention to my back. With the 27 vertebrae in my neck, this was an easy task. This is what I did. I gently pulled on the base of each feather, checking for the keratin sheath that covers them. When I found a sheath, I carefully removed the upper part, staying clear of the blood supply below. Then I preened the feather to bring out its fullness and locked the hooked barbs in place that provide the strength and shape to my contour feathers. One of my sisters approached and allopreened me. She cleaned my crown feathers and dressed them nicely. After all, I can't reach them. I returned the favor, and then she flew off to be with the others. I continued my examination. My spine was fused from the shoulders to the tail, just like I had read in my former life. A fused spine gives support that is needed to the chest muscles to allow for the strenuous but wonderful joy of free flight. There is nothing to compare with beating your wings against the wind and soaring above the earth. We also rely on flight for needed exercise, much as some humans rely on swimming pools. I felt the air passing through my lungs, and it thrilled me with the oxygen it gave. In this body, the air tasted as thick as nectar. I remembered that this had to do with the air passing directly into the bloodstream. This is also a reason we must fly away from fumes or smoke. There are more wonders. 5 air sacs gave me buoyancy to take flight. When I'm flying, my lungs work like billows to force the air in and out of my body. A racehorse knows the exhilaration that I feel in flight. There is nothing like the feeling of belonging, of being a part of the flock. I was among my own kind. As the sun reached meridian height, We each found our places for our daily nap. In these well-hidden perches we slept. It would be a mighty predator indeed that could find and devour us there. We choose our rest sites carefully to prevent the approach of any unseen threat, and our eyes are never far away from opening, except in the deep of night. Our only defense at night is to plummet to the ground below. We awoke to the sun lowering in the sky, and we began foraging again. We spent the next 2 hours eating, playing, and tearing wood into pieces. I looked at my feet. My feet were zygodactyl. I had 2 toes pointing forward and 2 toes pointing back. I opened and closed my toes and watched them move in unison. I used only one muscle in each foot to do this. There is only one muscle for that. My nails, made mostly of minerals and keratin, were sharp and helped me cling to branches. A nerve ran down the core of each, making it sensitive to the touch. My beak is calyptorhynid. That's a fancy way of saying that it moves from side to side and head as well as up and down, and has great strength. The nut I am popping right now would take a hammer to break in my old life. I have nerves in my beak in several places. That is one reason that I am so good at using it. I am a master of applying just the right amount of pressure. I remember the books I studied as a human saying that parrots cannot taste much because they have only about 450 taste buds, while humans have more than 3,000. I think they need more studies to compare quantity to quality. After all, look at what those humans call food. Ugh. I eat by pushing things with my skilled and powerful tongue against my upper beak, and then crushing them with the lower one. There's a special groove in the upper that helps to hold food there. My beak is a constantly growing, living thing, even if the outside of it is hard like a nail. As the sun set, we found our safe places and cried out to the dying of the light. I fell fast asleep. A loud noise startled me, and I fell off my perch in the darkness toward the ground below. Somehow I just kept falling. Was this a falling dream? Now it seemed that I was standing again. I closed my eyes. I wanted to keep them closed forever. I heard a door creak open. It was that sound that had shattered my dream. Do I remember doors? My eyes opened. I saw myself, my old human self, coming over to my cage. For it was now clear that I was a bird locked behind bars. I watched with amazement as the old me in human form unlocked the door to the cage and opened it. I heard his words, but did not understand them. I had no need. I knew the look of feeding time and the sign language of his movement. I would have liked to fly to the top of the window and to look out at the world as I did in my dream. I knew I couldn't. My old human self had cut my feathers and I could not fly. I am ever more nervous about predators now that I cannot fly to safety. It had been the old dream, the dream that comes every night of a place called the forest and the family I never knew. It is more than a dream. It is a need. I am no stranger to sadness. When I was sad and lonely a few years ago, I began to pull out my feathers. Sometimes I cried out loud, but no one came to fill my emptiness. My old human self is kind to me, and does not cover me or place me alone in another room, as the others did. He takes me out every day, and I play under his watchful eye. He cooks food for me and gives me toys, yet the ache remains. Pulling my feathers out still seems something I need to do, and I'm not sure I know why. A buzzing sound began to annoy me. It grew louder and louder, like a giant bug next to my ear. I recognized the sound finally. It was my alarm clock. I awoke. It was a few moments before I was able to get my bearings. I did not turn into a cockatoo. It had been a dream. I noted the bumpy texture of the ceiling, the white walls of my bedroom, and the ticking of the clock on the wall. Am I still the human I was? Am I? Will I ever be the same again? I pulled my hands from under the covers and looked at them carefully. I thought of wings. Slowly I turned to stare at the large cage at the end of the room. I heard her rustle her feathers. She was awake now. Under the cage cover, I know that she stood on her perch, waiting for me. Had she been dreaming?
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Evidence is evidence. It's public. Everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
The Chloe Sanctuary for Parrots and Cockatoos, a nonprofit charity dedicated to the empowerment of captive parrots and public awareness.